Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and today we have a new update to the Midnight Alpha. They're adding Zulaman for testing. I haven't done really or looked too much into the leveling content or the new dungeons, the new delves, any of that kind of stuff yet, so that's something that I've been more focusing on the class side of things, so that's what we'll look at more, but it is worth noting that information will now be out on this new alpha build. They have also temporarily turned off housing just because there was some bug with this build for it, so not something to worry about. Hopefully something they can fix even before the next build, maybe, with a hot fix. And then we still have the first boss of March of Keldanos is testable. At some point, they're going to turn off the ability to go test that boss, but it's nice to be able to go in there and test like the new encounter timeline and stuff like that. Again, something I've only dabbled a little bit in. Okay, so let's take a look at the class notes. Now, I've been making videos class by class where we sort of go, they're like an hour each, 30 minutes to an hour each, going over pretty much everything that's happening for a whole class. And so some of these classes I've already done, and some I will be doing over the next week, and I'll kind of try and differentiate by that. But for instance, Death Knight, I've already done a video on, so this will be a little bit more useful because I already know all the other stuff that is happening to DK. So we have a couple new talents in the class tree. We have Death Notes, which makes Ray's ally cost less runic power. We have Death Defiance, which gives you reduced cooldown on Death Pact, and you receive increased healing while the heal absorb is active. Blood Bond is a new talent that makes it so your ghoul sacrifices 4% of its max health to heal you for 1% of your max health every second while you're under 50% health. An interesting effect. Pretty powerful, HPS onto yourself, but it'll be annoying if your ghoul is ever dying because of this, and you gotta notice and resummon it. That would be kind of a pain, potentially. And then a couple of changes, including a Death's Reach now being a choice node against Asphyxiate, which typically you don't need. Like, typically you need Death's Reach for raid Death Grip situations, and then you often take neither or just Asphyxiate for M+, depending on which of the three specs you were playing. At least that's how it worked out a lot in previous expansions. Of course, that's one of those things that changes dramatically based on how many free talent points you feel like you have in your class tree. Deathbringer. Soul Rupture no longer causes enemies to deal reduced physical damage. Frigid Hunger has been removed. There is a new talent called Frigid Resolve, which increases the effect of Permafrost by a little bit more for blood than for frost. And Exterminate gives you Permafrost equal to 10% of the damage dealt. And First Scythe of Exterminate no longer grants Bone Storm. Unholy. So this is, I guess, outside of hero talents now, just back into the class, or the specs in general. Unholy Aura has been updated. They basically swapped around. Putrefying is going to give you haste, and Magi of the Dead are going to give you mastery, which I think previously it was the other way around of those two stats. Necrotic Coil deals Shadow Strike damage up to 3 foes instead, and scales with mastery. It was physical. Its Shadow Strike damage is being reduced by 35%, and they're giving a maximum duration to your diseases of 36 seconds, and increasing the extension that you get off of Death Coil and Epidemic on those plagues. All right, Demon Hunter. We haven't taken a look yet at Demon Hunter on like an in-depth video here. There's a small change coming to Annihilator, where Celestial Echoes will only give you a little bit of additional fury instead of a lot on Consume. We have a bunch of new class talents coming in, so good thing I didn't do Demon Hunter yet, because a huge set of the class tree is actually now coming out. Focused Ire makes the primary target of Chaos Nova get stunned for longer. Demonic Resilience, this is a big one, giving you an extra charge of Spikes, which is just, you want that for Vengeance, but Blur for Havoc and Devourer, and super crucially, Netherwalk has previously been changed in the previous update to make it so that Blur gives you Netherwalk when you press it. So you have fewer total cooldowns, but Blur is like Blur plus Netherwalk. And now you're getting a charge of Blur back, so you will have kind of the same number of cooldowns as before. So yeah, pretty powerful there. Burn It Out. Immolation Aura, you can basically, there's a choice node to make it either dispel a disease or a curse. Remorseless, Fury Spenders deal more damage. Furious, Fury Builders deal more damage. First in, last out. Fell Rushing, Shifting, or Infernal Striking gives you a rapidly decaying shield for 6% of your max HP. Actually pretty nice, in particular for Vengeance, to get, you're probably going to get that 6% shield hit on your Infernal Strike, so you're going to get the full value on it. Soul Splitter, anytime you would generate soul fragments, you have a 2 or 4% chance to generate an additional one. Fellbound, more movement speed. It's replaced by Guile for Devourer, so it's only available to Vengeance and Havoc. I don't remember what Guile is. Will of the Illidari gives you maximum health 6% for 2 points. Illidari Knowledge reduces magic damage taken by 6% for 2 points. Aura of Pain's been updated, making it so Soul Immolation grants additional fury over its duration for Devourer DHs. Erratic Fellheart reduces the cooldowns of Fell Rush, Shift, and Strike by 2 seconds flat instead of 20%. Demon Muzzle's been updated, so this is now sort of like the enhancement one. Interrupting a spell with Disrupt decreases your magic damage taken by 15% for 12 seconds. Actually, I think that's Shaman baseline, and now DH has this effect as well. So a little bit of an incentive to actually kick, and yeah, just all magic damage taken. Potentially pretty powerful, although typically DHs aren't too scared of magic damage anyways, so, if you have a raid or a dungeon and a bunch of magic damage is threatening people, typically the DH is the last person to die, or one of the last people to die, maybe before the DK. Improved Sigil of Misery is being updated, now also reduces Sigil of Chains' cooldown when learned. References to Lesser Soul Fragments have been replaced with Soul Fragments in relevant tooltips. Lesser Soul Fragments have been the default ones for quite some time, so we're simplifying the name across all Demon Hunter specs. Greater Soul Fragments will remain greater. So just, Soul Fragments and Greater Soul Fragments are what you have. A lot of language in the Devourer tree also initially referred to souls, which is now just Soul Fragments. And there's no functional change here. If you actually played DH, you know it's the same thing. Then Devourer, the hunt no longer causes, and this is actually for all three, or I guess not for Vengeance. So we're removing the healing effect from the hunt to reduce the number of auras applied by the hunt while also focusing its design and fantasy. We'll monitor the results of this change and adjust if necessary. This is for both Devourer and Havoc. I don't see it for Vengeance, although maybe it's just been pruned from Vengeance. I haven't checked that yet. Consuming a Soul Fragment now heals Devourer DHs for 1% of their max HP. Consuming Soul Fragments is a very important part of the Devourer rotation, but... and actually, so I guess this is probably a decent amount of HPS that's going to come out of this. And then Vengeance, Sigil of Chains now replaces Misery when learned, and the cooldown is going up to 1.5 minutes. So they're really trying to make sure that they have a robust baseline safety valve from Vengeance, being like the late Dragonflight Vengeance, where you had 7 stops that you did by yourself by making Chains now replace Misery. And Spikes no longer has 2 charges baseline. Of course, you have to talent in now to Demonic Resilience to get that charge back. Druid, pretty short set here. We did look at Druid. Also, there's a video of that if you want to go see a longer deep dive there. There is just some buffs to Resto, Keeper of the Grove healing numbers, although a nerf to the activation rate of Sylvan Beckoning. And then Guardian's getting a pretty big nerf to Memory of Ysera from the previous iteration. Again, I wouldn't be too worried about this. The initial number actually did look really big to me. Yeah, now it's 1.6% of your max health every time you spend 80 rage, down from... So this is like a... They're cutting this thing by more than half, because not only is this value going down, but they're also doubling this number here. So it's a little bit more than a halving of the HPS of this effect. But again, they're tuning new effects. Those are often kind of wildly off the mark when they're first placed, so I wouldn't worry too much about changes like these. And then same with, Waking Nightmare Thrash damage going down. I'm not too concerned with these sorts of little numerical, and not even literal, big numerical adjustments on effects. I'm more concerned about the sort of qualitative changes, messing around with cooldowns and those sorts of effects. So what things do rather than how much number they do, because the number, we just have such a bad... I have no anchor for what the number actually should be right now, or whether Guardian is going to be a high self-sustained, low self-sustained tank based off this type of change. Okay, Evoker, Flame Shaper. The duration effect from the duration reduction from Consumed Flame should now consistently update the aura duration of the breaths when triggering its effect, and Consumed Flame now causes Disintegrate to consume 2 seconds of fire breath. I think this is per tick as well, so it's going to do 10 over its duration, and Pyre to consume 10 seconds of fire breath. So basically, wow, those things are just going to turbo consume. I think this completely kills Scorching Embers and stuff. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure how this affects. It seems like this is going to be pretty big for any any sort of gameplay around having fire breath on the target, I mean, you're basically just going to always slurp up all that fire breath as soon as it is on a target. There's some class changes here for Evoker. Again, we haven't done the Evoker video yet, so if you're waiting to watch that, I'll probably go over these again when we do that video now, but they're unhappy with Rescue being occasionally used solely for its absorb effect, so we're redesigning Twin Guardian. The new talent focuses on its value as a way to save yourself or allies who are out of position. Renewing Blaze was an extra defensive keybind we felt could be better served as an improvement to Obsidian Scales. Finally, we're adding some new talent options to increase player choice as they level up and gain new talent points. Stretch time. So it sounds like they're taking away a defensive. This one's actually pretty huge. The stretch time being added here just as a class effect. While flying during Breath of Aeons or Deep Breath, all damage you take is dealt over 10 seconds. I mean, that's a crazy powerful way to not die over the initial flight. Although, of course, depending on the damage profile, you might then have a nasty dot on yourself that makes you feel pretty squishy. Right, same as time dilation. You can't die while it's up, and then you do die afterwards when everybody else is safe, but you have a huge dot on you. New strike from above, making it so glide speed and height is increased by 20%. Twin Guardian's been redesigned. Rescue increases movement speed and allows spells to be cast while moving for 3 seconds. Pretty cool. I think a good way to solve the power of that Twin Guardian Rescue shield. And yeah, so that plus this Renewing Blaze change does reduce the number of cooldowns that Evokers will have. They did have a very high number of defensives. Renewing Blaze has been redesigned to upgrade Obsidian Scales, giving you the effect for 8 seconds. And then Fire Within has been removed, as well as some more talent swapping around in the tree. But yeah, net, I mean, I think Evokers will still be pretty naturally tanky. Maybe not naturally tanky. They'll still have a lot of good defensive options here. Augmentation. Improved Defy Fate is a new cooldown that makes Defy Fate's healing go up by 100% and its cooldown go down by a minute. Bestow Wordstone has swapped places with Stretch Time, and then Stretch Time has been removed, so the spot where Bestow Wordstone was is now empty, and the spot where Stretch Time was now has Bestow Wordstone. Dev. Firestorm no longer increases the damage of Disintegrate and Pyre. Its damage goes up by 25%, and the second Exhale has been renamed to Strafing Run. Preservation, there's a new redesign on Call of Ysera, making it a passive effect that increases Dream Breath's healing and Living Flame's healing. Okay, Hunter. Pack Leader, we've got another little change here. They actually did a lot of changes to all of the Hunter hero talents already. Pack Leader's getting another one, though, where Master's Call's duration is going to go up by 2 seconds, and is increasing the movement speed of its target by 20%, choice note against Slicked Shoes, and they're taking Horsehair Tether and moving it to the class talent tree. This is a really interesting change, because one of the huge, this was one of the few hero talent utilities that I really noticed. During the Race to World First, for instance, Hunters were playing Pack Leader BM on Forge Weaver Raz, and so their Binding Shot had that grip effect. That's what Horsehair Tether is. It's the grip on Binding Shot when it triggers. But then in my guild, our Hunter was playing MM, which doesn't have access to Pack Leader, and so we didn't have, the grip on Binding Shot. Now, of course, that's something you can figure out, but it's something that you notice, and it's pretty rare for hero talent utility to be something you notice. Flameshaper Renewing Blaze is another one that, you definitely like, oh, it's actually really important that you're playing that hero talent tree so that we get this this piece of utility on Mythic Ansarek, for instance, at the start of this expansion. So they're basically taking that away, which is interesting because those sorts of things that make one hero talent like, oh, I notice and care about what hero talents my raiders are playing, I guess it's probably bad, because with that sort of thing, those people then might feel like, oh, regardless of which hero talent I want to play, or even potentially which spec I want to play, I need this, so I'm locked into this build. But yeah, it's an interesting thing changing for sure. Okay, we have some new class tree changes for Hunter as well. A flat increase to auto attack and auto shot damage. Moment of Opportunity, when a trap triggers, get some movement speed. Choice note with Trailblazer, pretty cool effect there. Shell Wall. Damage taken during Turtle is reduced by an additional 20%. This actually is a pretty sweet talent because Turtle is one of those cooldowns where you still die after pressing it, depending on the type of damage. If it's just damage that Turtle doesn't deflect, you're still pretty squishy during it. So this is nice. This now turns that into a pretty sizable wall. Cold Feet, a slow on Freezing Trap breaking. Very nice effect, probably for PvP type situations. Not really something we care about too much in PvE generally. Combat experience. Wow, 3% increased agility. What a Pogger's talent. Improved snaring. Wing clips slows by an additional 25%. Concussive slot shot an additional 10%. Horsehair tether. Yeah, there's that binding shot drag. The option is against tar-coated bindings. Roar of Sacrifice. This is a pretty cool one. So it's still pet sac, right? It's your pet is instructed to protect a friendly target, reducing their damage taken by 15%, but 50% of all damage taken by that target is transferred to your pet, lasting 10 seconds or until your pet's health drops below 25%. I mean, that's a pretty sizable DR, right? It's 15% plus, assuming this transfer doesn't mean they also take the damage, then, which maybe that would be too crazy. So maybe, like, if they would have taken 100 damage, maybe they take 85 and your pet takes 50. Or if instead it's they now take 35, 42.5 and your pet takes 42.5, then it's really good either way, but it's really, really good if it's that second way. Fortitude of the Bear has also been updated. It's now a passive, a 3% DR. Reception from the Marksmanship's passive version has been positive, so we're comfortable moving its effect to the Tenacity Pet Specialization baseline. I'm curious also how Roar of Sacrifice will work for MM, actually, without having a pet. Then we have some updates here to War Orders. Now reduces kill command cooldown by 3 seconds, was a reset. Stomp's been updated. Now no longer deals separate damage to its primary target, and its damage is going up by 200%. Pretty big AoE buff there. Wild Thrash damage increased by 100%. Marksmanship, less cooldown reduction on target acquisition, less cooldown reduction on focused aim. And Survival can now loot and wield one-handed axes, one-handed swords, and daggers. Ooh, very interesting. I hadn't expected daggers to go there, but that's weird, because daggers have historically been, like, always only rogues. Why not give them warglaives too? Say, you know, if we're gonna screw the rogues, let's screw the demon hunters as well, and then let's give rogues bows as well. But yeah, that's really interesting. I was on board certainly for one-handed axes and one-handed swords. I'm not sure how I feel about daggers. I guess if Sylvanas has daggers and stuff, you know, that was a pretty big part of her identity. Dude, this leans into one of my initial problems with Hunter hero talents, is it just felt like Dark Ranger should have been a survival option instead of a BM option. And then you could give Sentinel to BM, right? Sentinel's about an owl is about a pet. That makes sense for BM. Dark Ranger is Sylvanas-y. Sylvanas had a dagger combo in her fight. That seems survivally. But anyways, that's a war I lost a couple of years ago. I lost before I even knew I was fighting it, probably when Blizzard locked in how they were setting up these hero talent trees. But anyways, that's Hunter. All right, let's move on to Mage. Frostfire now makes it so that meteors summoned via isothermic core now shatter up to 2 stacks of freezing. Since meteor now shatters, it will benefit from Frost's mastery. Frost also is no longer getting cooldown reduction from haste on Ray of Frost or Frozen Orb, but it is going to increase its icicle generation based off of haste. Ice Lance is going to shatter more, and Comet Storm is going to shatter more. And Improved Shatter is now a 1-point talent to give you 50% increased Shatter critical strike chance. Yeah, we haven't looked at Mage yet, but there's a huge overhaul to Frost around this Shatter, so that'll be fun to do. Monk, we have Heart of Jade Serpent. So for Mistweaver Conduit, Heart of the Jade Serpent now triggers from casting Thunder Focus T. Previously, it was Shaylun's Gift, which is now a choice note against Vivify, so they want you to be able to take either one and still be able to play Conduit. Yu'lon's Avatar now causes Vivify and Shaylun's Gift to have a chance to trigger Heart of the Jade Serpent, so whichever one you talent. Fix an issue that caused Windwalker Monk's Celestial Conduit node to be present in the Mistweaver's tree. Funny. New class talent, Silent Sanctuary. While no enemies are within 15 yards, you heal every 3 seconds. Interesting for a melee class to have this. Because on some raid fights, you could imagine Mistweavers in particular getting some HPS out of this if they're playing at range, which sometimes they do. But yeah, usually, you know, you want to be in melee as a monk. Still Step Coil. Leg Sweep applies Disable for 5 seconds when it ends. PvP type thing mostly, although, you know, since it's an AoE stun turning into an AoE slow, that's much more powerful for PvE than the single targets like Freezing Trap turning into a slow. All right, up next is Serene Surge, which is a new option for Mistweavers against Vivacious Vivification that lets you get a instant cast Vivify or Shaylun's Gift after casting Enveloping Mist. So if you just want a pure, you know, healer,
caster rotation there. You can get that. Reinvigoration is another new talent. This one is after Detox removes an effect, their movement speed is increased by 30% for 5 seconds. That's pretty nice. Nice little bonus on that. Although, again, not the kind of talent that you'd ever care that much about. This is one of those talents that you take and are like, oh, that's neat, if you have extra talent points. But it's one that you drop if it's not in an important place otherwise. Vital Clarity. Vivify and Sheilun's Gift's crits are increased by 15% on yourself. This replaces Vigorous Expulsion for Mistweaver. Mistcaller, on the other hand, makes Vivify and Sheilun's Gift trigger an additional Gust of Mist when cast on yourself, replacing Strength of Spirit and Profound Rebuttal choice node for Mistweaver. Okay, Brewmaster, just some damage number going up on some of the fire damage. Mistweaver, bunch of stuff happening here to kind of cement some of the rework stuff that they were doing. Megaset had a good video talking about alpha Mistweaver stuff. If you're interested in more of that, and then of course I'll cover it when I get to Monk at some point, less well in the Mistweaver side of things, but when I get to that class. Emperor's Elixir. Thunder Focus Tea now empowers Enveloping Mist and Rising Sun Kick further. Enveloping Mist begins a channel of Soothing Mist that may be cast while moving onto your target. Rising Sun Kick releases a Jade Fire Stomp in front of you. It's back. I think Jade Fire Stomp, especially with all the animation stuff they've done for it, it would be a shame to lose that entirely. So it's good that that is not getting fully killed from the game. Taking away the extra keybind and putting it as something that procs on your next Rising Sun Kick. We'll have to see how Mistweavers feel about that. But I'm at least glad that the pretty animation will be back available for Mistweavers that want it. Misty Coalescence. Renewing Mist healing is increased by up to 300% in proportion to its coverage on yourself and allies. So this basically means that if there are fewer people that it's on, it's going to heal for more, and they want to make it matter more in small group content without making it stronger in raids. Jade Empowerment's been active, or been redesigned, now increases the damage of Crackling Jade Lightning by 300%, and is always active. We're trying to slim down the amount of burst healing CDs, but we'd like to keep this effect alive and see if we can find a space for it in a more always or sometimes active way. This will not be tuned to surpass or equal Mistweaver's regular rotations damage if it remains a passive like this, with the exception of this may become a primary way we want Mistweavers to deal damage in PvP, in which case PvP modifiers would be used to not affect PvE. And then Jade Fire Stomp no longer heals, Rising Mist no longer heals affected targets, Ancient Teachings has been updated to transfer damage into healing from Jade Fire Stomp, Rushing Wind Kick no longer increases the healing of Renewing Mist, and instead heals up to 5 allies affected by your HOTS. Tea of Plenty, Tea of Serenity choice node has been moved, Chrysalis and Burst of Choice node has been moved, and they've killed Celestial Harmony, Mending Proliferation, Mist Dispersion, and Mist of Life. Alright, Holy Paladin. Holy Shock now overrides Crusader Strike when learned. Ooh. We're making a change to condense the amount of Holy Power generators with a cooldown Holy Paladin has to track to see if this streamlines the rotational experience. There may be gaps rotationally for now while we tweak the finer details, but we want to try this and see how it feels to play. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That means that they can, it's interesting. Crusader Strike's been a weird one where, of course, some of the most high damage Holy Paladin has been when Crusader Strike hit very hard, right? But this seems like an interesting way to, to go about setting this up. Crusader's Might also now causes Holy Shock to reduce Cooldown of Judgment. That's, I think, the corollary to this that makes this interesting and not just like, okay, we've lost a button and a playstyle. Avenging Crusader now triggers off of Judgment, reduces the cooldown of Judgment. Shield of the Righteous now reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock, while it's Crusader Strike. So this might actually dramatically increase the importance of playing one-hander and shield for Holy Paladin, whereas they could maybe get away with two-handers in raid situations or with one-hand offhand. The Holy Paladin in my guild actually crafted an offhand this tier because you could put Ascendance on an offhand but not on a shield. Blessed Assurance now increases the healing and damage of Holy Shock, was Crusader Strike. Punishment now casts a free Holy Shock, was Crusader Strike. Reclamation Tooltip has been updated to no longer mention Crusader Strike. Alright, on to Prop Paladin. The Apex Talent's in for Prop Paladin. Glory of the Vanguard. Judgment has a chance to grant you Vanguard, causing your next Avenger shield to leave an echoing bolt of light between you and the initial target, piercing any enemy struck to deal holy damage. Interesting effect here. Creates a little bit of an incentive to Avenger shield the back target, kind of like hunting the back target. Hopefully, just like the hunt, there's some flexibility where it's like, look, if they're all within 5 yards of each other, just hit them all, even if I Avenger shield the front one, please. But then the next 2 points make it so that Judgment deals increased damage, and when you consume Vanguard, you gain Holy Power. This is going to be really nice. Getting effectively Holy Power back on Avenger's Shield if you can get these Vanguard procs for it. But the next talent point includes the text, during Avenger's Wrath, your Avenger's Shield always benefits from Vanguard. So during Wings, every time you Avenger's Shield, you're going to get 3 Holy Power. We're back, baby. Holy Paladin Prop Paladin is so back. The other part of that last point is, after consuming Vanguard, your next cast of Shield of the Righteous deals 20% additional damage to your primary target and causes light to refract on 4 other targets for holy damage. So that part's a little bit more whatever, and it's just, damage proc. But yeah, during Wings, you always get 3 holy power every time you Avenger Shield, and you get these bolts of light, and you're gonna get these Shield of the Righteous things. Yeah, I mean, Prop Paladin, I would say I was mid on. There were parts that I was concerned about, and it seemed like it was probably losing more than it was gaining, which everybody's kind of losing more than they're gaining in terms of like raw number of stuff. But in terms of just like excitingness of the playstyle, I was a little bit more mid, lukewarm on the Prop Paladin. I think this Apex talent may have single-handedly saved it for me. This is sweet. This is again, the actual proc rate of this outside of Wings does matter a lot for how this feels, but even just during Wings, it's going to feel so good. So, yeah, huge dub there, at least from my perspective. Priest, we have a rename on Ascendant Prayers to Spiritwell. Then Archon Shadow has a new talent, Spiritwell, I guess, that increases the damage of shadowy apparitions. Mind Flay Insanity damage is going down. Empowered Surges from Insanity damage is going down. Perfected Forms damage is going down. All talents now have appropriately themed icons as Shadow. Voidweaver. So Voidweaver was one that hasn't been like fully implemented for the removal of Void. Is it Void Torrent or? Yeah, I guess is because there was Shadow like doesn't have some of that anymore, right? Okay, so there's a new talent, Overwhelming Shadows. Mind Blast deals increased damage and Void Torrent deals increased damage. Okay, so maybe Void Torrent is still there. Maybe I just missed it when I was playing on my Priest and looking at stuff. But, oh yeah, I guess Void Torrent is still there. It was Void Eruption is what I'm thinking of. And I guess now that is maybe what... Yeah, so Void Torrent now summons the Entropic Rift instead of Void Eruption. Okay, that makes sense. I think I have the right Void word. A lot of the Shadow Priest words sound the same. Okay. There's another new talent, Quicken Pulse, which makes it so that the Shadowward Pain and Entropic Rift deal damage more often, and Void Heart now persists for 8 seconds after Entropic Rift ends. Then, agnostic of the hero talent trees, because all those changes we mentioned were largely Shadow-focused, but they were for the 2 hero talent trees. For just baseline Shadow, there's a new talent that just increases your dot damage. Obviously, you're going to take that. Another one that makes Mind Flay have increased crit chance and deal increased crit damage. And then Shadowy Apparition and Mind Blast damage is going up. Talenting into Misery now replaces Pain. Ooh. And then Shadowy Insight now grants a temporary charge of Mind Blast that ignores its cooldown instead of granting a charge when triggered. I guess making it so that you don't need to worry about your Mind Blast cooldown status as much when planning around potentially getting a Shadowy Insight. Yeah, okay. Rogue, we have some new class talents here. Toxic Stiletto, giving you energy cost reduction on Shiv, cooldown reduction, and range increase. Quick Fingers, just another boring throughput talent, 3% agi. Deep Cuts, 6% damage on finishing moves. Yeah, they're like, hey, welcome to Midnight. Everybody's getting new talent points. Here are some talents that you have to take with them. Danger Sense, you have a 20% chance to partially evade any damage dealt to you, reducing the damage it deals by 20%. A powerful effect if this number was higher. Obviously, you have to multiply these 2 things together to get the actual DR that you're getting off of this. So it's a 4% DR, but it's an unreliable DR. And it's both unreliable and also not especially powerful when it does proc. But obviously over the course of a fight, this will still average out to 4% less damage taken. That means it's still a good defensive node. But yeah, this type of thing, making obviously either number going up would be good. Bringing the 20 up to like a 50, even if it meant taking the 20 down to a 10, I think would make this a much stronger talent, for instance. I guess that would be a buff on flat power levels, so that would make sense. But even taking this up to 50 and then making this 8, and I think it would still be stronger, and then it would be, net neutral on overall HPS. Cold-Blooded Killer's been updated. Critically striking with an attack that generates combo points increases the crit chance of your next direct damage finishing move by 10%. And they took away Rush Setup and Shadowheart. Then for Outlaw, Murder has been renamed to Crescendo of Violence. Shaman, Farseer, Elemental. Stormkeeper now summons an ancestor to your side for 8 seconds, and routine communication can now trigger from Flame Shock and Voltaic Blaze. Resto, Offering from the Beyond, now gives you less Riptide CDR. Totemic, Resto, Oversurge now applies to Healing Tide Totem. Then on the class side of things, Chain Heal's jump range is going up to 20 from 15. Flame Tongue Weapon is no longer learned by everybody, I guess, and is now an enhanced talent that replaces Improved Flame Tongue Weapon as a talent for Ellie. Oh, and it replaces a Improved Flame Tongue Weapon as a talent for Ellie. For Ellie, Improved Voltaic Blaze makes Voltaic Blaze have lower cooldown. Fusion of Elements makes it so consuming a power of the Maelstrom fires an additional elemental blast at your target at 40% effectiveness. Mastery's damage gain is reduced by 10%. Ascendance increases the damage of overloads by 75% while it was active, was 150%. It's still going to be 3 times stronger than it is in PvP, down from 6 times stronger than it was in PvP. And Erupting Lava is going away. Raging Maelstrom for Enhance has a new effect, making it so that consuming Maelstrom Weapon causes your next Healing Surge or Chain Heal to gain 100% of Maelstrom Weapon based on stacks consumed. Okay, yeah, so basically you can sort of get the double dip, right? Like, after you can get a healing Maelstrom Weapon expenditure without actually having to expend the Maelstrom Weapon on it, which is nice. Resto, we have the Apex talent in, which I guess I'll read now, because that's sort of what I've been doing, although of course we'll take another look when we get to the Shaman video. Riptide has a chance to upgrade your next Healing Stream Totem to a Storm Stream Totem, which heals for 30% more, heals 1 additional ally at 100% effectiveness, and heals 2 injured allies immediately when used. Very powerful. I mean, you're talking about Healing Stream Totem healing for 130, 260% more baseline, plus the initial heal on it. This is a 10% chance per Riptide to cause this to happen. So, I mean, yeah, when this procs is going to be big, I think. Healing Stream and Storm Surge Totem healing up by 60%, and it's usable for free and ignores its cooldown when available as well. So when you proc it, you just get one to drop as well, and then it doesn't even take away your Healing Stream. Wow. That's going to be very powerful. Not especially, like, this is very... It's very... You're just reacting to a proc, which is skillful, but it's not the kind of skill that healers tend to like, of reacting to incoming damage, and instead you're reacting to a proc on your character, and that's, like... I don't know. You know, like, you're doing a key with the Shaman, and they're like, yeah, sorry, I just didn't get any Storm Stream totems here. Or I guess... They're calling it Storm Stream here and Storm Surge here, so maybe that's 2 different things, but I assume that's just the same thing with a slightly different name there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. And then they're buffing all healing, Healing Wave, Healing Tide Totem. Totemic Oversurge now applies to Healing Tide Totem, and Coalescing Waters healing bonus to Riptide is less as well. So, yeah, we haven't done the Shaman video yet, but the TLDR for Resto Shamans is that they are getting turbo dumbed down, and we're not talking about, like, this spec wasn't rocket surgery before, right? It was, like, medium, hard, medium, and especially this season, it was actually the easiest healer, or one of the easiest healers with the Riptide spam build, but even just historically, Resto Shaman, you know, it's not one of the hardest healers, in the opinion of most healers. Usually they would put, you know, stuff like Disc and Resto Druid, the most proactive healers, near the top of that list, depending on the situation. Mistweaver, with the... You know, being a melee healer, not having an immunity. So, all that said, I don't think this really constitutes a change to that status quo. I think Resto Shamans are still looking for, you know, something more, a little bit more agency over being a good healer, letting them do more healing in some way. It doesn't have to be some complicated math or something like that, but, you know, you look at stuff like Wild Growth versus Chain Heal usage, for instance, and I think finding some way to give Resto Shamans something that being a good healer lets them, you know, cast it at the right time would, I think, be really good. Warlock, the new hero talents aren't implemented yet, but we're putting the tooltips in, so these are just the new rows or new columns for the hero talents. We have, Diabolic Oculi, where you summon Diabolic Oculus each time you extend Diabolic Ritual, and then they do stuff, damage, and extra damaging primary target, and giving you intellect. Hellcaller is going to give you increased damage on UA and Seed of Corruption, doubled while Malevolence is active. It's going to give you chances of giving 8 seconds of Malevolence on your Wither, and making Malevolence give you additional haste, and when cast, increases the stack count of active Withers by an additional 2 stacks.
And then Soul Harvester, getting each succulent soul consumed has an increasing chance to unleash the demonic soul within you, enabling it to assault your enemies for 9 seconds. Soul Swipe, striking nearby enemies with a malevolent claw, dealing shadow damage and shadow damage to other enemies in 10 yards. I wonder how this is... I assume this isn't an active ability. I assume something just casts this. Maybe this is what the demonic soul casts when it procs off Manifested Avarice or something. Shared Vessel increases your mastery, doubled while the demonic entity is aiding you in combat. And Eternal Hunger, increasing the duration of Manifested Avarice by 5 seconds and the damage of Soul Swipe by 10%. This is an interesting set of designs for the hero talent rows. It really feels like the Warlock new rows are all like little mini trees that they're kind of like little mini Apex talents where they introduce something and then they increase its power with the next 2 spots below it, which is not a bad way to do a hero talent column, but it's not how they do all of them. It just seems like what the Warlock designer came up with or liked the idea of, and yeah. Seems cool. Seems fair enough. Affliction. They're redesigning Demonic Soul for Soul Harvester Affliction, where a demonic entity now inhabits your soul, letting you detect if a soul shard has a succulent soul when it's generated, which empowers your next UA, causing the target to take increased damage per UA. Yeah, so they're just basically making it work with UA instead of Malefic Rapture, right? And then Shadow of Death, making it so Dark Harvest is empowered by demonic entity within you, causing it to grant a soul shard that each contain a succulent soul every second while channeled. Then we have some PvP changes, some item changes. This is the one we already talked about in my last update video, but they're keeping the functionality of letting you get the next appearance up when you fully upgrade a lower set appearance. Then they're updating nameplates, improving some behavior there, which is good. This one in particular, the stacking behavior getting better. That's one of the worst parts of last week's alpha build was the nameplate stacking behavior. It was really bad. Hopefully they, end up making that feel good before they shoot Plater in a couple months' time. Cooldown Manager, debuff tracking will now show stacks. Edit mode allows for width to be adjusted for the tracked bars. Sound clips and text-to-speech are both being added as well. Text-to-speech now supports an overlap flag that allows multiple voices to play simultaneously. Previously, it only supported queued playback. That's going to be really nice if you are somebody that wants to rely on text-to-speech, because queued playback, not particularly good. Being told 10 seconds later something because you have multiple of them triggering is bad. It now supports embedded speech XML tags to allow changing rate, volume, pitch with an emphasis within a single line of text. Yeah, really nice there. This is accessibility. It's also, potentially power level if you want to set this up for your text-to-speech, setting it up to... You can get some of the functionality that is going away from add-ons with this type of thing. Not the fight side of things, but on your own character's, effects side of things. And then loosened restrictions on various APIs for tooltips and cooldown controls so add-ons can pass secret values into them. Secret values are basically the Blizzard saying you can't have add-ons work in the way that in the ways that, they worked in combat before, right? Like any sort of stuff like that. Like, for instance, if you want an add-on that's able to display number values as 1,000 versus 1K, that type of thing, I think even that logic is not going to be possible for add-ons to run on numbers in combat because there'll be those secret values. So this, I don't think, is actually adjusting. So from what I've seen, Weakor has tweeted out just the word no when this came out, and in some other messages I've seen with add-on developers. At least as of right now, it doesn't seem like there's any meaningful change to what Blizzard are doing with add-ons, which I think makes sense. In a lot of ways, what they are doing with add-ons, if they tried to just give back 10% of the functionality they're taking away, we would use that 10% to replicate what all this stuff used to do, right? Like, if you just let us recolor nameplates only, if you just let us do that, all of a sudden we're then going to be like recoloring a mob's nameplate to red when it's casting an important spell, right? Or recoloring a mob's nameplate to green when your kick is next, right? All that kind of stuff. Like, basically they have to take away pretty much everything here, but hopefully they can find a way to, let the parts of it that are purely, modifying the look of your UI, because right now a lot of that is getting caught in the crossfire here, and how bad that ends up being
is going to be dependent on whether they can make the functionality of the updated nameplates match what, people's nameplates do right now in terms of just feeling nice for them. Same with cooldown manager, matching their weak aura pack in the middle of their screen or whatever. So yeah, all of that is important that they get that right. And I think it's fair to be skeptical of that, given that, often this takes a lot longer than the amount of time that's probably left until midnight. But, if they have the will to do it and the resources to do it, it could certainly still work out, I think, better than... It could go a lot of different ways between now and midnight coming out. I think it's hard to tell whether the doomers or the believers in Blizzard here... There's sort of three different factions with the add-on thing, right? There's the people who are like, this just sucks, losing my add-ons is going to suck, I hate everything about this. There's people who are like, this sucks, and a part of the reason that it sucks is that I just have no faith that Blizzard can do... they can make the cooldown manager good, which actually that one is pretty far along in alpha. The nameplates, the damage meters, the raid frames, all of those are not anywhere close to good yet on alpha. That faction, definitely feasible, definitely plausible. Then there's the faction that's like, this is good even if none of that works, right? Even if we have to go back to 2004 base UI, no add-ons, I'm celebrating that, right? And those people don't care. They don't care whether all of these improvements that need to come through to cooldown manager and updated nameplates do. All right, finally, we have some data mine set bonuses. So only Unholy and Ret Pally, but we can glean what types of set bonuses they're currently looking at doing. Now, this is data mined, so it's possible that they're not committed to this. It's possible things could change. There haven't been a blue post about this or anything like that. But most of the time, this sort of thing ends up bearing fruit. So we have the Death Knight set is the 2-piece Dread Plague damage goes up, Virulent Plague damage goes up, so your plagues do more damage. The 4-piece Consuming Sudden Doom reduces the cooldown of Putrefy by 1.5 seconds. So this one actually is, gameplay, which is better than most of the Nerebar Palace set bonuses did. This one you'll actually be like, oh, cool. My rotation feels slightly better, slightly faster, right? So that is nice. Then the Ret Pally one, Expurgation deals more damage, is the 2-piece. And the 4-piece makes it so that Final Verdict or Templar's Verdict apply Expurgation at 50% effectiveness, while Divine Storm applies it at 25% effectiveness, which again, that does key into some other parts of your spec tree as well. So, I think this is a little bit less. You'll feel this. This is more like a Nerebar Palace set level or Vault of the Incarnates level set bonus in terms of like how much you'll actually notice it as a Ret Pally. Probably not going to be one of the more exciting ones. The Unholy one, I mean, this definitely, to me, this means, okay, they're planning for pretty simple set bonuses in Season 1. And, notably, they're not hero talent based like they were at the end of War Within. I think they're kind of settling in on this this paradigm of the first tier of the expansion. We're going to have simple set bonuses. They're going to be low power level. I understand doing low power level, and if you want to do low power level, you kind of have to do simple ones, because if they're complicated but the reward isn't that high, then that feels bad, right? But yeah, I hope that more of them are like the Unholy one, where they at least give you a little bit of cooldown reduction, right? They at least give you a little bit of something like this, rather than just flat, assassination Nerebar one, where it's like, your poisons do more damage, your bleeds do more damage. That kind of thing. Actually, I think the 4-piece was good, but the 2-piece, right? Anyways, that's what's happening there. And then finally, one more piece of news, which there's not a Wowhead article for, but there is a Mr. GM tweet for, that says, in the latest Midnight Alpha build, the crest system has received updated naming conventions, where basically all of the crests are being renamed to the track that they upgrade, and then they only upgrade items on that track. We don't yet know what the item level bands look like here, but presumably this might mean that there's not overlap between the tracks anymore, right? You know how champion and hero track overlap, or maybe there still is, but you upgrade the champion, to the max only still with the champion crests. So yeah, we have veteran, champion, hero, and myth crests, and then there's also an adventurer dawn crest, which will be used, I presume, to upgrade the explorer track gear or adventurer track. Yeah, I guess adventurer track gear. Explorer track gear might be gone. Might upgrade for free because, of course, Valor Stones are going away. So, yeah, I'm not sure how they'll set that up. I always felt like Explorer and Adventurer had a lot of overlap, anyways. So, I think you could prune the Explorer track probably and just have the Adventurer track with the Adventurer crests. Have that come from
a lot of those come from the outdoor world, and then a few weathered crests come from the outdoor world, and rarely get some champion crests from the world, and then of course all the old sources that we know and love for all of these crests. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm curious to see what the eye level ends up being from this, but this will definitely make things less complicated. I think a fixture of every patch is people in the community have this idea and they're like, these eye levels are kind of hard to explain, kind of hard to understand. I'm going to go make a chart. And then they end up making a chart that is like much more, it makes things much harder to understand for the people looking at it. They're like, oh my God, this is so complicated. All these levels and stuff, all the levels that the delves and the dungeons drop and the Great Vault comparison. And everybody's like, and then somebody else looks down and is like, that's not a great visualization of that. I'm going to make my own. And then we just get to the new patch launch, and there's just 20 of these different charts going around that all try and convey the same information, and none of them succeed at making it super easy to comprehend for people that don't, already understand it through enough experience, like the people who played the previous patch, right? And I think this will go a long way towards actually making it possible to quickly comprehend how the upgrade system works and what eye level the different stuff is at, what content you should be doing to get your upgrades from, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm excited about this change. The eye level is definitely going to matter. How the tracks actually look definitely is going to matter as well. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Let's do a classic move of just clicking Wowhead, because this video has been recording for about an hour, so there might be some new news that we can snipe in here. Oh, there is a Wowhead post for the Mr. GM tweet. All right, nice. Yeah, look at this. They even have one of these graphs that people make for one of these upgrade guides, showing here how the different crests overlapped and stuff. And actually, they have data mined which activities each crest comes from on this as well. So yeah, adventure crests, as I said, come from outdoors. And it looks like veteran, champion, hero, and myth all come from the same sources as expected. One thing that isn't mentioned is Mythic Zero dungeons. It doesn't say whether those give champion or veteran track on this, but yeah, otherwise this just looks basically identical to previously. I guess one thing that's not there is you do get Gilded Crest from Delve 11s, but only from the bounties from the maps, so maybe that's still there and just not listed in this. But yeah, otherwise this all looks pretty much the same. Yeah, okay, all right, cool. Well, Mr. GM had it tweeted first. Wowhead did make an article about it eventually, though. That's going to be it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.